My guess is we'll have to skip the actual public hearing because that would require it to be an actual meeting. So we can't hold a continuation of the public hearing from a public meeting at a not meeting. Yes. So I'll have to figure out what to do if it was tabled to a date where there was no meeting. But we'll figure it out. But we can discuss the wall signage anyway.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is a new adventure for all of us. All right, so we really can't approve the agenda or the minutes. All right, sorry. Do we want to? Let's go to anyone for public comments other than what's on the agenda, because you guys are here for the Dolly Drive and you're the church. Okay, so let's move on to discussion items. You are certainly welcome to stay after we're done with your discussion, but you don't have to. So we'll move you up so you can get outside and enjoy the weather. Okay, so how do we want to do this, Paul? Patrick?
So since there is no official meeting, this is more or less an informal discussion. You can't make any motions or directions, but you can certainly talk about things and listen and provide feedback. Should an option on item 10 be a variance, I would strongly caution against saying how you would vote on a variance. But basically, it's a conversation with, yeah.
So Harley, why don't you come on up? We need it on the microphone so it's recorded. Just push that button and give us your name and address, and then just kind of tell us what's going on.
All right, name Harley Duriesman. Live at 1605 South Dolly Drive. I got a deck that's in kind of sad shape, so I've been talking to Paul on tearing it down and got things tore down to where I decided I needed to do a complete deck. So I came in to see Paul about the deck. We're writing up the building permit when we see that on the original building permit, it was set for a 12 by 14 pad. And what we have is a 12 by 14 deck. So now the discussion is, I got an illegal structure on that property. Now, as I told Paul, and Paul eventually did come out, we have, where the deck is the dining room patio door, 6-foot patio door. Directly below that patio door is a 6-foot wide, 4-foot deep, or 4-foot out and 5-foot deep egress window. So the chances of having a concrete pad put there, pretty unlikely. But the builder did not put in a change work order, and our inspector at the time signed off on the final that everything was as per. So here I am, I've got an illegal structure, which I even visited with my next door neighbor who his property bought the same time as the property that I'm at. You can ask him. He said the deck was there from day one. So here I am, I got to apply for a variance on something that was there that the building inspector probably should have caught, should have been changed, but now 23 years later, I get to deal with this. And, and I'm upset at the fact that, I think I realize we have the 25-foot setback, and if the properties would have been developed properly, because I have this problem. When Brian went and replaced his deck a few years ago, he was through the same thing, but his was, rebuilt the structure as a deck because his building permit said deck. Mine said patio. So I'm a little upset the fact that that didn't get caught and I got to deal with this stuff when I should be having my permit and being able to get started on it, provided we don't have any more snowstorms. So, I guess I'm looking to you guys to see what can we do? Can we correct something that was aired 20 some years ago, or do I got to go through the extra expense and time to get this variance done? And it's not like I'm building in a 12 by 14. I don't know what yours is. Yours has got to be about the same size. So, I mean, I'm not building a structure that's bigger than the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Yeah, same size was in there. And I just would, I kind of like take pride in my property. I want to keep it up. The deck that's on there, I mean, Paul came out and looked, it's in sad shape. I mean, when Paul came out and looked, I even dug out one of the footings. And then where the footings is, there's black dirt and clay. There's no gravel, no crushed rock where there would have needed to be in order to even have a patio on there. So, here I am trying to explain to whoever will listen to me that this is an error that's really not my fault, and I really need some help with this. I guess it's either it, supposedly had a concrete pad, which I find out couldn't have been there, or it had the deck that was built supposedly without being permitted properly, or it had no structure on there at all, which I guarantee you a loan company and an insurance would not insure that property with the patio door where you step out and you drop down the hole about 8 feet in the hole. So, I mean, something had to be there. And it's most logically, it was that wooden deck. That's where I'm at. Anybody got any questions or comments?
Yeah, so since it's a discussion item, Harley, and we visited a little bit on the phone, so we can discuss it, we can't take any action.
Yep.
We do have a quorum now, so, we can't take action on the other stuff, but let's deal with this first and see what the commission has for questions, okay?
Okay.
I got a couple questions. So I just saw the pictures. The pictures weren't in our agenda that was sent out earlier this week. So, looking at the memo in here, it says in 2012 a secondary
Right.
deck was constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
That's off to the north side of this original deck.
the lower
It's
portion?
it's a lower deck.
That's the
They
lower
built
deck,
it, put a hot tub on there. Now, again, that one was permitted, built, and finalized, and it is not 25 feet from the setback
Okay.
on there either. So, again, I can say, okay, maybe the first time was an error, but it happened in 2012. I mean, I don't know Dave Swear. I don't know him if he walked in here. But to me, he wasn't measuring things, and he wasn't being diligent in his job. And, and like I say, I'm not putting up some cheap green treated deck. I got a composite deck for it. And the neighbors around me that have replaced it have done composite. So I'm trying to keep up with the aesthetics of the neighborhood. The house, I try to keep it in pretty good repair. So, I mean, I'm not trying to put up some junk.
I can't speak for the previous inspector, but I have a feeling what probably happened, and here again, I'm assuming what probably happened was it was constructed, he went out and inspected it, and he probably could have said, tear it off and redo it.
Yeah.
Because it was different than the
Well,
plan.
and again,
But he probably allowed it. So, but that's water under the bridge. I guess my question is, what exactly are you asking to do? I don't know if I saw that in the memo here. Are you?
I'm tearing off the deck and building exactly what it had. Same square footage, same dimensions, no changes.
Same everything.
Nothing different.
So,
Putting up a metal railing as opposed to the wood, because I had cedar railing with aluminum spindles. I'm putting up a composite deck with black aluminum railing.
sure. Okay. Question for staff. I believe in the past we have been a little bit more lenient that if somebody is refurbishing a deck, we've allowed them to do it in the same footprint. I know the ordinance says if you do less than 50% at a time, you're okay, but we
Yeah.
said, well, it doesn't make sense to do 49%, 49%, and than 2%.
Right.
When you're getting the same result to do, basically refurbish 100%. So is this different than that scenario?
This is different than that because it is a non-conforming use. To be a non-conforming use, it would have had to have been legal when it was built. We
But
do
I
not
thought,
have a building
but I
permit.
thought we allowed them to refurbish a non-conforming deck.
We did because it was a legal non-conforming use. This is not a legal non-conforming use because it was never legal. It is an illegal deck. It was never gotten a building permit, so that is what differentiates the two.
Okay, so,
Staff does not have the authority to make things legal that aren't.
okay. Question number 2. There's, per the images that we just got, and per the discussion, there's an egress window underneath this original deck.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, I don't know what that is egress from. Is that a bedroom, Paul?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it is.
So the building code requires a 3-foot vertical clearance. That did not have it. I believe you made the adjustment in.
When I bought the house 8 years ago, there was nothing there. I cut in a 3-foot by 3-foot trap door that comes up, so if there was a fire and they needed an escape, I put that in right away
In the deck? Or
on the
what?
deck. Yeah, on the floor of the deck, because, again, I thought that was kind of stupid, but it's like, you know, it only took a day to do it, so knock it out quick, and I have rest assured if somebody has to get an exit out that way, they got a way out.
Well, would you do that again for the new
Oh,
one?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't, that's not an exception that's been approved.
Well,
It would be up to the building official to make that
okay, well, I mean,
adjustment.
and I know you said you would work with me on a
Right,
plan to
right.
do that, and
Yeah.
I guess, you know, if what I put in there before isn't acceptable, I guess
Right,
I'm
right.
open to whatever suggestion.
There's a couple different ways we could do it. You could take the deck and move it to the point where you're not covering up the entire egress pit to allow the firemen to come in or the people to get out. I'm not sure if that's logistically
Yeah.
possible, but I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
it'd be close, I think so.
Yeah, that window is directly same proportion as the patio door. I mean, it's not offset by an inch. So I couldn't use that patio door, period, if that had to be completely open. And again, probably the way it should have been, but the builder and whoever let it be built that way. So I mean, I want to build a safe structure. I want to build something that's, you know, if somebody did get it in Divine, they're going to be able to get out. I just need to know what we can do. And
So I got another couple questions here. So it looks like the first deck, which is the higher deck of the two.
Yep.
It looks like it was cut off. Is that correct?
When I talked to Paul about what I was doing, my original plan was just to redeck it, resurface it. So I pulled off that part of it, saw the joists were bad, went down to Paul to talk about a building permit. That's when the deal came up about it had a concrete pad on it. The joists were shot, so I cut it back to make an exit out of the patio door, and I dug up the beam that carries the joists to see if there's anything down there. And there's only black dirt, clay. There's no crushed rock for a base for a concrete pad. So that's why I took it off. It's like it's going away. Paul's coming out to look at it. I want him to see that, you know, somebody just didn't cover over it and put a wooden deck over top of it.
You wanna see what the original deck looked like? Yep, you can pull up Zillow. We can pull up it on Zillow because the picture's still on there.
Yeah, Brian Papka, and I'm 1609 South Dolly, just south of Harlan. And when I moved in, John Tweet and Becky Tweet were my neighbors. They were actually moving in the same time I was. They purchased their house briefly before me. They were still moving in when I moved out. And I come out on April 9th of 2004, so. So the original is that first part to the right. Everybody's right. The other is after, Vaughn and Becky Island added that on and then put their hot tub around there. So that, the first section over there is what was originally there when I come out. And like I said, they were moving in the same time. I think they closed their house just before I did, and that's the way it was, besides that new section off to the left part. So I just want everybody to know what I seen, and that was it. But there's never been a concrete pad, so.
So, yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, you're saying it's a non-permitted deck, but if it was there from day one, it was there the day that the people closed with their bank. What are you supposed to make of that? You know, somebody screwed up and it wasn't me, and I want it fixed somehow.
Well, this commission, Harley, is very diligent about trying to come up with, some solutions. Sometimes it seems very obvious to you folks and us as to what it should be, but sometimes the law just doesn't allow us to do it. So they will do their best to come up with something, but I can't guarantee that we can get it exactly the way you want it. Flexibility is key here, and I think from both sides. So let's just see what they have to say.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns just with building code, and Paul would have to answer that, but how to address that egress window, that would be, well, I think the concern would be if there's a fire and somebody does try to go out that window and then they can't get out, I don't know, I'm not a building code guy, I just know that that's not something I think I've ever seen before, and I've been in thousands of houses, so that would be one.
So if you're, let me put it this way, it's not a code violation right now. It's a code violation when you go to sell it and you list it as a legal bedroom and it doesn't have legal egress. You can't list it as a bedroom when you list it for sale, right, Paul? Yes. So you can have any room you want in your basement, living room, bedroom, storage room, bathroom, whatever you want. Now, if you want to claim it and list it as a bedroom, it has to have the egress requirements by code. Okay? So if you cover it up with a deck or do whatever, whether it was originally or whatever you do for modifications, and it's not a legal egress, the city can't allow you to list it as a bedroom, and neither should your realtor or the person who's purchasing it when they have their inspector come and look at it. They'll basically say, no, it's not a legal bedroom. So the bedroom issue is not an issue.
Because this is being recorded and it will be in the minutes. So if you would like to make a comment, please come up to the microphone.
So I know that's not on the discussion topics here, but after looking at the pictures, it complicates things a little bit. So I just want you to understand that if you, regardless of what we come up with, if you do build a deck over it and you don't have the legal exiting requirements, you may lose the ability to list that as a bedroom. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. So
one additional comment I'd like to make to this, young lady is that when I do a house inspection in whatever form or fashion, and there is a room that doesn't meet egress or smoke alarms or whatever it is for a legal bedroom, I document the city, documents for the property file, and then I'll let the owner know that they should not list it as that, but we can control that. Once I walk away from it, the owner can list it however they want to, and I'll never see that listing. But we protected the city and their job by doing the best we can to understand that the northwest bedroom is not legal in the building code's interpretation.
Okay, so let's get back to the deck issue.
So where does the 25-foot setback fall in that picture?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. 20 feet, 6 inches from the back of the deck to the property line. And that addition that was put on there, I'm 23 feet, 6 inches away from the property line for a setback. So in the future, if somebody got to redo that lower deck, same situation probably.
That is different because it was permitted.
Right. But
So
thi-
I understand, I understand what you're saying,
okay.
but it is different. I want to be very,
No, I agree. But I'm just logically speaking, the fact that I think your building inspector and the builder that built the house is no longer in business. Otherwise, I'd go visit him myself and tell him what a jerk he is. Because he's built a lot of houses out there. There's a lot of houses that were built by Loose Brock Building out there. And I don't know, I think the house itself is built well. But this really sucks.
and I understand where you're coming from. I just want to be very
No,
clear
I
that
know.
they are two different
Yeah.
situations, and one of them is a much easier situation.
And
to
if,
address.
like I say, if I gotta have that a non-legal bedroom, I think that's the best trade-off I can have right now, because when we bought the property, the house, that was one of our selling point, or one of our purchasing points. West side, sit out there in the lounger, set up the grill, and watch the evening sun go down.
The deck was the selling point,
Yeah,
not the bedroom,
yeah.
the deck, yeah, okay.
So, but like I say, in the future, yeah, if I gotta tell somebody that that's a non-legal bedroom, I've seen realtors sell houses with non-legal bedrooms and say you can still use it for a bedroom, and it's not right, but that's a realtor selling a house.
And so it's 20 feet from the property line to the end of what was there before, right?
20 feet, 6 inches from the property line to that deck,
And how deep was that deck?
12 feet.
12 feet.
So if I had to make that legal, that deck would be 7 feet, 6 inches. And that's not a deck, that's a porch.
So remember, this is just a discussion. And I don't know if, there comes a point where we give him some guidance if we go the variance route, or, I don't know what you're thinking, but we can't make any decisions at this point, because it is under discussion. So Paul, are we running into these more and more often now?
This was definitely an unusual one with the egress pit, but I would not say it's pervasive that we're seeing a final product in 15, 20 years later and the set plan didn't match it. That's not the way it is. This is a rarity, I think.
Most of the lots in that area are roughly the same size. They are, given the whole area counts smaller.
So did they build a bigger house on a smaller lot? Is that what happened?
Yep, it's on the second page of the memo. But there was that similar situation. The difference there is they, for better or worse, that he did receive a permit, whether they should have or not is another story. But they did, and they built their deck, so we allowed them to repair it because we considered it. We gave them deference because we did give them a permit, so we considered it a non-conforming use, so they were allowed to maintain the permit.
The frustrating thing, and I totally get it, is you had no control over that and didn't realize it. And we do find these from time to time, and it's difficult. Once we, make a change to yours, then that opens up a can of worms for the whole town. That's why it's such a challenge.
So Patrick, if I understand the memo correctly, under additional commentary, there is another house just up the street that was approved with a covered deck, not just not a patio and not just a uncovered deck, but a covered deck that was approved with a 13-foot setback, correct?
Correct. Then they applied for it as a covered deck, and they built it as an uncovered deck. So there is that little bit of discrepancy there. I don't believe our code back in 2003 really made a distinction between the two. But there is, in physical look at it, there is that distinction. So they did not 100% build what they say, but our code back then looked more at it as a deck as a deck rather than a deck as a patio, if that's a distinction. So in that situation, they did apply for a variance because they wanted to enlarge it. The board of adjustment in 2023 said no, but then they came back. Even though it is 13 feet from the rear property line, it was issued a permit. So we could get back into, can you legally issue a permit for something that doesn't meet the code? But they went through the process, and we felt that we should give them some kind of deference. They did go through the process. We did approve it. So we allowed that. We considered that non-conforming because they did go through the process.
Okay.
Question, Paul. So for just stepping back for a minute, not, I guess, still talking about the deck, but not bedroom or non-bedroom, is a window like that with an obstruction, if it wasn't considered a legal bedroom, still a problem?
If it doesn't, I mean, egress pit has its own regulations, so if it doesn't meet it, then it would not be a legal bedroom. The window itself and the egress pit are two different dynamics, and they both have to meet for it to be an egress, code compliant. So the trapdoor situation would just be a building official's call, are they gonna allow that to be exception? It's not in the book, so, but the authority having jurisdiction could make that. And it's certainly better than not having something, but, is that what you're asking, sir?
Yeah.
So just to frame it up for planning and zoning, when they came in and we were talking through this problem, mostly Paul, but I provided some feedback as well. The options we gave them were to obtain a building permit to repair and replace the portion of the deck conforming to the code as if it was a entirely new building permit, no structure had existed before. There's a variance from the Board of Adjustment, which my guess is that variance, if applied for, would have to take the approach of a reduction to the rear yard setback itself, just because the deck at that height would be considered part of the principal structure. Or we presented the possibility they could talk to you about the issue with the setback is because of the height of the deck. If it were a pad, it has the 5-foot rule. If you set at an elevated deck being a foot, which makes the difference between the pad and the deck, is 2 feet different than a foot, is 3 feet different than a foot. Do you want to re-examine that line? So we gave them some options, so that's kind of our conversation that led us here. As staff, we can't necessarily make an illegal structure legal, is our limitation as staff. We have a lot of things that people have built over time that they may have not gotten permits for as staff. We can't unilaterally just wave a magic wand and say they're fine. That requires either the city council or you all to some degree to do.
And we certainly appreciate that you're trying to do it right. That's what always catches us. The people that are trying to do it correctly, then we have problems.
So I just want to make sure I understand what is in front of us here tonight. So this is a discussion item only, where
Correct. They
we
are
can't
looking
and we're
for
not to take action, right?
Yes. Correct.
So we have two options, I guess, moving forward. We can suggest, I guess, right, that they go through the variance process.
You can suggest, but I would caution, you can offer as a possibility, just don't speak to how it might go or
Right.
how you might vote.
But that's one option. They can go through the variance process. Number two, we can consider changing our ordinance. Those are basically the only options we have, right?
That's
At
the
this-
options
at
you
this
have.
point.
They would have their own option of cutting it back to meet setback.
Right. So, well, I guess I'll speak for discussion purposes. I guess I'm not interested in changing our ordinance. I know we have a lot of these issues come up. We've had several of them come before us. Some have been approved, some have been denied. Some have been denied and contested at city council and overturned our decisions. But I guess at this point, you know, our ordinance is what it is. I can't speak for what happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I can't speak for the previous code official and what happened and those decisions that were made. But I guess at this point, I'm not in favor of changing our ordinance from the 25-foot setback. So that's just my opinion.
Other comments?
This is a extreme hypothetical conversation. So, Patrick, if we did do like we talked about doing like an R1B to allow for narrower lots, and if we did something like that, I know some, Sioux Falls has a bazillion different zones, and some of them do allow shorter setback in the rear yard. I'm not sure if it's 15, 20. I don't. I have to look and see what it is, but if we did do like an R1B that allowed for a smaller setback, how hard is it to like rezone a neighborhood? Is that,
We would need to. So you need to rezone in a non-arbitrary way. You just can't. Well, I like my buddy, so he gets this, but I don't like you, so you're not getting that. And so you have to do it according to a plan, and generally that is the comprehensive plan. So we would need to. You would need a rational basis for doing it. So conceptually, a neighborhood would be easier to rezone than just one property surrounded by an island somewhere, and you leave the rest alone. A neighborhood would be an easier approach if that's the way you wanted to do it. The thing to consider, of course, with a new zone is, as we ran into with R2 versus R1, you don't want to just make a new default replacement for R1B is the new R1 and R1A is a relic, as you know now everyone wants R2 and nobody wants R1 anymore. So there'd be a way to do it. It makes sense in some places to have a differentiation. The ones that do it, if they're a smaller town, tend to have towns started with smaller lots. I think most of our lots downtown here are 25 feet wide. Most are replatted together to provide some width, but most have either kind of city center or city traditional or city suburban, where recognition that modern houses tend to be larger houses on larger lots, where smaller ones are smaller houses on smaller lots. So there's some differentiation there if you wanted to write the code to fit different things. Whether a lot of things downtown here, if we looked at the code now and they needed to rebuild, how much would they have? I don't necessarily know. If it's a 25-foot lot and you have 7 and 7 on the sides, it's not too much of a house. So there are ways to do it. It kind of depends on your purpose for doing it and where you write it. But the rezoning, if you do it according to a plan and some articulated reason why, that is potentially a path to go.
just looking at this development down here in Parkview Estates, there's just so many houses that have decks in the setback. There's 108 West Mountain Ash. I don't know if that's something you can show up on the screen or not, but that one looks like the deck is less than 20 feet from the setback, and they're all over the place down there. And that's just kind of what we've ran into. And I think most of the deck issues that we've had variances are from this development. So I don't know if that's a road we want to go down or not, but I'm just, like I said, it's a hypothetical conversation. I don't know if that creates more problem than solution going that route. But I don't want to change our R1. I think this is kind of just a neighborhood that was built at a time where the tape measure was broke or something, but anyway, that's how I feel about it. But so I don't know. It's just a hard thing to just allow something to go when the rest of the town, we would just open up a can of worms if we just kept saying that these are okay. So
And just to get back to the specific thing we're talking about here, I appreciate the resident for coming and discussing this, and if I say something wrong here, somebody please correct me. But I mean, of course, you're free to make a variance request. That's something you can do. I don't know how that would go, but maybe there's some other solution that could be a creative solution that isn't gonna be what you had imagined, and it isn't gonna be maybe rebuilding what's there, but maybe I think it came up a little while ago in discussion. Obviously, you've got that patio door at a height, and the deck was basically right there. But I think it was mentioned here, and this is where, correct me if I'm wrong, that if there was, and this might not be what you want, some way to transition from that height to a lower height that would be closer to the ground and be considered, it'd still be something usable. You'd have to step down to it. And there's lots to discuss in this, but maybe there's a creative solution like that that could go the route of maybe a building permit and approval, or maybe still a variance. I don't know. There's a lot depends on what was actually come to, but I was just thinking that if this was my situation, and I'm sorry that you're in this situation, because I believe what you presented, that this was, you acquired this and it was this way, that maybe there's a solution like that that could be brought in. I think
One foot, if I'm correct.
If
You
it-
can be 1 foot off the ground.
transition to kind of a ground deck, it might be able to extend into the,
To within 5 feet of the rear property line.
so there's still lots to consider, but maybe there's something there. There's still considerations with the window, but it might be something to ponder and maybe talk to,
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, just speak for me personally, I want there to be a solution too, but there's only certain mechanisms we have when complying with our codes, so.
Yeah, we would need a site plan and a construction plan for a deck.
Anyone else have any ideas for Harley?
If you did do something with that, go to that route, looks like the deck was wider than the egress window previously. If you just kept the higher deck closer to the width of the door, and then maybe you could put that egress window out on the side. I'm just looking at. You'd have to
You could
widen
use
that.
your
You'd have to
patio
widen
door.
that pit.
You would be able to use your door on your patio, but you would, glass that doesn't move is where your rail would go into. Or you wouldn't go into the window, but that's where it would go to. So you'd have a section of it, it'd be like an L, taken out of the deck, where you could still use that egress window then. And it would not affect, if you would lower it to 1 foot, you'd get more deck technically. Past that 7, once you get past that 7.
Before we continue on, we should probably, since we do have 4, call the meeting to order and have a quorum, just because you do have 4, and we want it to be an official meeting because there are 4 of you.
Okay. So we'll call the meeting to order. We do the roll call, Paul.
Megan, Brian,
Present.
Kevin, Brooks.
Here.
Rob. Michael. Barb.
Here. All right, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Motion to approve, Noam.
Can we move the signage variance
Oh, yeah.
after the discussion on the
Sure.
signage?
Is that okay with you, Brooks, if we move the signage up so our gentleman doesn't have to sit here for everything? Okay,
Yep, yep,
okay.
yep, that change
All
can
right.
be in my.
Did you make the second then?
I'll second it with that modification.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes, approval of the minutes, please.
Hyde Brink, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Toad second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes, all in favor? Okay, I called for public comments, but I'll call for public comments again in an official meeting. I think everybody's here for a certain issue, so hearing none, we will move back into, do we have more discussion on this? So they gave you some ideas. They always try to come up with some ideas. You are certainly welcome to try the variance route too. Can I get you to go up there?
So the variant, I've never done this, so I don't know what's involved in the variance route. I don't know. I think Paul said that $375 is the fee, but I don't, can somebody tell me what this variance is all, I know what it does, but what's the process?
So the variance process is we have an application, you fill it out. The key point is we need the owner to fill it out, of course, but you have to state what your hardship is. Hardship for zoning purposes is different than what you or I outside of this room would think of a hardship as. Hardship is not it's difficult or I want it. It's some or expenses. It's something physically limiting about your property causes your ability to do much in terms of feasibility with it. You're greatly limited, and it's something that can't be the case for lots generally. It has to be something that is very kind of hyper specific to your property. There's something physically or the contour of the land or the size or a circle or something is weird and unique about your property more so than any other property in town. It's something direct about the land to you.
Okay.
And that requires the application, then we have to publish notice in the newspaper, and that, it takes roughly, probably about a month for them to hear it once you submit your application, because the newspaper publishes a Wednesday, then, you get it Friday to the Wednesday when they publish, then you have to add the 10 days, and that eats up most of a month. So it takes about a month to get to them.
So it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm losing property value by not having that deck that I had on there. It has nothing to do with keeping up with the neighborhood, the aesthetics of the neighborhood. That means absolutely nothing on this variance thing you're talking about, right? I mean, I gotta be missing a leg or a foot and say that I gotta have this 12-foot deck because I can't go up and down, 4 or 5 steps because I'm missing a limb.
Staff can't tell you what constitutes a hardship because that's the board's. You have to convince the board, but I can read you what the language says, and they're the ones to apply it.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. These don't always work out exactly the way we would like them to. We're frustrated too with the way the rules are, but the rules are the rules. So you've got a couple of options. Work with Paul and see, if you'd like to come back for a variance, you're certainly welcome to do that. If you don't like what the commission decides, you can always appeal it to city council. That's the other option. Sorry, Harlan. Okay, so are we going to the variance application, or are we going to the GB wall signage? Where are we going? We're gonna do the wall signage? Okay. Okay. Moving on to wall signage. General business discussion.
So I tried to put up a draft ordinance on page 34 of the packet. I went back and listened to the recording, so hopefully that's more or less kind of in the right direction. And based on adding the 1 square foot per 1 foot of building frontage, I did print out from Minnehaha GIS and kind of measure out what that looks like. They're all rough measurements from GIS, so they're probably off a foot or two, but that gives you a rough sense of what a 1-to-1 would look like for that structure. So hopefully the language there is what you wanted. My understanding was the greater of those two options with no individual sign on a lot with a strip mall exceeding 200 square feet, and then the rest of it, kind of makes sense. You don't want the sign to exceed the size of the side of the building it's on, and the rest is pretty standard. Then the definition of strip mall I also tried to modify, but hopefully we're moving in the right direction, but I am open to your thoughts and suggestions. My guess is one thing we'll have to modify is the term building frontage, because frontage applies to street, and not all the face of a building is on a street. If that is your intent, I can modify frontage to building face.
And maybe you guys discussed this last meeting. When you measure that, that would be, it doesn't have to be individually owned then, correct?
This one would apply to the owner of the building, whether it's they have a unit and they have a bunch of tenants, they would effectively get the number and decide how to allocate the number. And usually they would probably do that by the lease agreements. I would hope it's just not put up whatever you want and hope.
So one question I have for the rest of the group here is, so basically what's in the draft there is pretty much what we have in the ordinance currently, other than subparagraph 2, correct?
Correct. The
Okay.
subparagraph 2, and I added the no individual sign located on the strip mall, maybe 200 square feet, because that's what you want to call out
Yeah.
specifically, as well as the definition.
So I guess the question for the group is, do we want to allow this for all central business and general business, or do we want to allow this just for strip malls? This additional exception. So say a Walmart, for example. Walmart moves in, super Walmart, giant store, single owner, single tenant. Do we allow them the same latitude as we do strip malls, I guess, is kind of my question for the group.
I guess I'm kind of leaning towards, I think what we're trying to get to is limiting the amount of signage density. So if you have a big building, you can have multiple signs and still not have a lot of density. I think that's what we want to kind of, so I guess I'd be fine with allowing additional signs for bigger buildings. If a Walmart comes in and they want to have a pharmacy sign and a shop sign, a sporting goods sign, whatever, but you've got 1,000-foot wide building, you should get more than 200 square foot of signs compared to a little boutique, So I guess I'd be okay with it not being limited by strip malls.
I guess I'm okay with that too. I wanted others to speak first. Thank you, Michael. My other comment is when we if we look at allowing additional signage because of building frontage, do we want to put a stipulation on there that, I mean, frontage is on multiple sides of a building. Do we want to allow them to take the frontage of all four sides and put all of that signage based on that frontage on one side of the building? Or is the 1 square foot of sign for 1 square foot of building frontage allowed only on that frontage? So say a 20 by 100 foot building. Do we allow them to take 240 feet of frontage and apply that to one side of the building? Or is it 100 square feet for the 100 foot long building, 20 square feet for the 20 foot frontage?
I guess I would lean towards the sign allotment should be allocated to the sign frontage of that side, is what I would lean towards.
Aqua John's building, for example, they have four sides. They could throw a sign on. I mean, because there's view from the other side. There's view from the east, west, and every single way. So I would agree with you about just that side would be that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think we discussed that last time. And so that's what I would be thinking too. I mean, the building that we kind of were talking about starting this discussion, I mean, it has a business on the backside. And there's probably a world in the future with where there could be a business on the south side. That would be too. And so, yeah, I would think a limitation of saying that wherever the frontage is measured, that signage needs to be used on that side for that one-to-one calculation.
Question for staff. Do you see any issues with the definition of building frontage and how that's calculated, understood with owners and tenants and builders? And do you see any possible issues with how that might be interpreted?
So, right now, we'd be working off the definition of frontage applied to a building, and the frontage is the side of a lot abutting on a street, the front lot line. So it would be, there would conceptually be a difference between a face and a frontage.
Because this is building frontage, not yard frontage.
Correct. This would,
So
this
this
would
is
be
different than our
the
typical.
building that you can see from the street, basically. If you were behind the building and you weren't on the street, that would not count as a building frontage.
So, say for example, a U-shaped strip mall. The inside of the U, is that all considered frontage? Or is it just the face parallel to the street? I guess.
Yep.
Those are the questions I'm
Yep.
bringing up now that we should consider.
If I had to make a split-second decision now, it would probably be whatever is roughly parallel to the street. If it the legs of the U would potentially not qualify.
Because I'm
kind
If
of,
it was
the reason I bring this up is, there's an outlet mall up in the cities, I can't remember the name of it. But you basically, it's not an interior hallway, it's an exterior. You're walking from store to store, like inside, but yet it's outlet. Or, sorry, it's outside, if that makes sense. And so that has frontage on the, not facing the street, but they all have signs on that back side, if that makes sense. So it's like an outside walkway, and there's all signage there. There's very little sign on the street itself. But you have two parallel buildings with a walkway between them and frontage, and that's where all the signage is.
Yeah, so
So if you have a U-shaped one, are we going to limit it? Say it's a 200-foot long building, but it's a big U shape, and we have a whole bunch of stores fronting the inside of that U, which is very common. Do we allow that frontage to be used for calculating the signs that are on all of those storefronts?
Would we include then frontage to be both a parking lot and a street. Conceptually, in the middle of the U is a parking lot. But then that wouldn't necessarily solve.
I think you said building face. I think that would be a better terminology because even if you look at Taco John's, two of those sides face a parking lot, not a street. And I don't know that. I just think of lots of situations like a outlet mall or a lot of different situations where either face is a street that you want to advertise for. So I think building face would be probably the terminology you'd want to use instead of frontage. I think if frontage implies a street, building face would be fine. Because I think I might solve that issue then. But I would. Is there a definition for building face?
Currently, no, but we can work on one. My guess is it would be the exterior wall of the building.
And that just might be a little bit smoother than saying frontage, if frontage tends to imply along a street, where I do think you might have a lot of situations where you have a wall sign that either goes up against a parking lot or you have two strip malls that are facing each other and there's a parking lot in the middle, the street is out, but you want to have those signs, out in the parking lot area, so you want to have the calculation off of the building face and not off of the street. So I think that if you want to whip up a term there, go for it.
Yeah, I think in the case of the U shape that was mentioned, that's in my mind what I was thinking of is not just the part facing the street. If it was facing the street this way and it was U shaped, like I don't know, in my mind at least, all those sides should be able to use a calculation based on the frontage of the building where they're at. The only problem I can think of at the moment with that is if you have a traditional strip mall that's just straight. I suppose if we don't say frontage and it's one business through, I suppose it might allow them to have a sign on both the front and the back of the building, same business, but I don't know if that's a problem. That's the only thing that came to mind. But I like the idea of not saying frontage and saying somehow building face, building.
Well, even like where Love That Look is at, that strip mall, it backs up to the Ace parking lot area, but I don't think there's a lot of signage there, but I think there's some signage, but I could see a situation where you'd want to have signage there just as much as you do on the other side. I think that one has most of it towards the south side, but I could see a situation where
That'd be like a frontage road in a
Yeah.
bigger town, where that's where you're gonna look to go to, so.
So with that input, Patrick, what kind of a schedule would we be looking at? Do we have to have another draft version?
Would you like to see another draft version?
I know we have two members who are not here tonight. It might be good to get a draft version to get their input, and then just make sure we're all clear. Sounds like we're adding maybe another definition as well. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think it'd be good to have another draft version before we put it out for public review?
But it slows down the
Yeah, it
process.
delays them
Yeah,
another
yeah.
2 weeks.
I kind of doubt having it made.
I think from my recollection of the previous meeting, I think this face idea kind of fits with what was discussed, and so personally, I'd be in favor of it going forward, and some changes can still be made on public hearing, so.
Patrick, can
First
we
reading.
still make minor edits if it's out for public comment?
You could make minor edits, but if the city council would make minor edits, it would have to go back to you.
Yeah, I guess, let's do that then. Let's have a public hearing at our next meeting.
So timing wise for publication, the next meeting to be able to hear it would, let's see, we got it, a notice. It would have, the earliest meeting would be April 16th. Because it goes to the paper, then it has to be in the paper 10 days. So we would be just short on the 2nd. So it would be April 16th.
But if we defer it for another meeting, it's just gonna push it out a couple more weeks, right?
Yes, it would probably be May at that point. Potentially the second meeting in May.
Okay.
I think we're just kind of wordsmithing now. I think we'll have it, maybe a couple of tweaks, but I think we're probably ready for public.
So just for the church's benefit, if we add up the 142, the 12, the 157, 8, 143, 34, and 94, that would be more than what is currently there, right? That would give them that would give them something.
But they would only be allotted what is, what's facing that street, so. Do you know what's used up on that?
We
that
do
east side?
have it in, we had it somewhere in the,
It seemed like
we
there
had
was.
it calculated. We have Avera has 56 square feet. Happy Nails is 48. The Circuit Martial Arts on the opposite side we do not know, and Sunshine Lewis on that side is 242.6. Which, if we're going by face, the one face would technically be 34 feet, and I'm sure that sign of the pharmacy drive-up might exceed that. So there's probably not a. So that kind of brings us back to sentence A. How do we want to, where do we want to place it? This is so long as the area per building does not exceed. Do we want per building or per lot, or maybe that's where we clarify per face? Then maybe that's where I'll clarify the face language.
Yeah, because
Face may not exceed.
the Lewis allotment couldn't take away from, or the Sunshine allotment couldn't, I know Lewis and Sunshine are kind of, I'm not sure how that works, but in another building, just because you were attached doesn't mean they'd be able to take up your allotment,
Yep.
You wouldn't want that, so it'd be,
So we would keep I'll work it out. The building face. Lewis would be a separate building face, even though I don't think this would necessarily solve their compliance issue because they're 242.6 with the other face sign, and that would allow them 94 and 34. So they're probably still above, but not every problem can be solved.
The 242, is that considering the whole building of Lewis and Sunshine?
Is that the whole building?
Because
or is that
your
just-
94 only goes to the
Or
middle
is that
of
just
Lewis.
the 4 that we have here?
Is that the pharmacy? Does that include the Lewis sign, the pharmacy sign, the drive-up sign, and the drive-up sign?
We believe so.
So those 4 signs are 242.
We believe so.
but I think on your sketch here, the 94 is only to that property line, it doesn't include the Sunshine side, so that'd be another allotment.
Correct.
With the 4 Lewis-related signs,
Yes.
working from north to south, Lewis, pharmacy, pharmacy drive-up, pharmacy drive-up. Those 4 cumulative are 242, correct?
Correct. would be technically a separate face.
So how big is the church sign?
Was it 32? 34? That face ends up having quite a bit of space.
So that would work then. No?
Because the Lewis itself is taking, Lewis
But
itself
the-
is 242 and we only have 237 to work with.
The Lewis Sunshine Building itself is 273 feet.
Yeah, but if we're stopping at the property line, because there's a property line going through Sunshine and Lewis, technically.
Your thing up there says the Sunshine Lewis is 242.
Including the Sunshine sign, that's what I was asking, it's only including the
Yes.
four.
Yes,
Lewis.
that should just be Lewis.
Yeah.
Yes, that does
Yeah.
not include the sunshine.
Yeah,
sign.
that's where I was confused too, I thought it was including the Sunshine sign, so I was like, take that out, but it's not in there already. That's what and how do you look at that building, cause they are connected, even though they are two different properties. You know, they're touching, there's not like a 1 inch gap between them at all. Yeah, well, just look like, yeah, Target, or, yeah, the Lewis is even over.
So how is this gonna fix the problem?
If that's the way we wanted to word it, that could be a solution. If we wanted to stick tightly to the area per building and we considered, as you mentioned, them to be technically separate buildings.
But that's what I was wondering when I was, the first time we discussed this, that's what, like Subway I had Subway as an example, they used to be bigger, they went smaller. So
How do we
are you
define
considering do you consider the business itself instead of the building? That's
Is
in
it
there?
the building or the unit? Is
Yeah,
the
so
unit a building?
Cause the unit could be 25 feet wide that they're only renting, and they need a sign, and someone next door could be 70 feet wide, and they need a sign. And then that 70-foot wide, 5 years from then, they could divide that out and make another unit in there, and then they need a sign. But they're already allocated out, and then now what do you do? Cause then we're back here again.
How do we want to define what constitutes a building? Is it, if it's all connected, is that one building, or are we defining a building as the unit in a structure? Because that would, if it was a unit in a structure, that would solve the problem, but if every unit of a strip mall is a building.
That's where the definition falls into place. So if we look at the 143, just that section of the building, and consider that frontage, then we could have a 39 square foot sign for the church.
What's the 143?
Because that's 149 square feet minus the 56 square feet for Avera minus the 48 square feet for Happy Nails. Does that make sense? Did I do the math correctly? 149 for that section of wall minus 56 minus 48. Sorry, that leaves 45 square feet. So it'd be a sign of basically the size of Happy Nails.
Do you remember what your sign
32.
So if we stay with that interpretation that, you know, if a building fronts and undulates and goes around corners, we can't just take the cumulative all of that surface and apply it at one point on the building. I think it needs to be based on each individual wall surface, if that makes sense.
Well, how's it gonna work when, like Rob says, you know, businesses change? They're gonna be limited to whatever was there originally, or how are we gonna?
That's something we can't control. That's up to the building owner and how much they want to subdivide it, how they want to give all this.
That takes us back to A1. So if we're going off of the area per face shall not exceed effectively the length of the face, how do we apply 3 square feet per 1 foot of the lot's linear feet street frontage to that? That seems potentially that would be kind of the default, wouldn't it? You would go, if that number is larger, you would just apply it to all the faces. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but
It's kind of an either or.
Yep.
They can take whichever ruling they want. They can either go with option 1 or option 2.
Option 1 for the building and option 2 for the face.
Option 1 if they want to do it based on the yard frontage, or option 2 if they want to do it based on the facade frontage.
it's looking pretty good right now. We're getting on record time.
So now we're saying with that definition, the church sign would work. Is that what we're saying?
They'd be allowed it. What I'm calculating.
We'll need microphones.
149 instead of 143, but you still end up with 39 square feet.
Yeah,
Left.
49 minus 56 minus 48.
Yeah.
Left 45 square feet.
But but it's 143.
Oh, sorry.
But you still have enough. You'd still 39 square feet. So no.
Right. You're right. 143.
Okay, are we ready for Patrick to move ahead with this then? We could get the church closer to where they would like to be.
One question, how do we address things like gas stations with canopies, banks with canopies? Are canopies considered building facade, or whatever term we use? Or is it just
Arguably,
the
yes.
wall that touches the ground?
Arguably, yes. The canopy's part of the principal structure, so we would consider it a wall.
So canopy would be considered in the, so the little drive-up area, on the south end of this, said parcel, that would count towards the frontage. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, is staff comfortable with this definition? 'Cause
All
you-
looks confusing.
Cause you're the ones that have to deal with it.
Once you get
Generally.
it in writing, I'll go through it.
So yeah.
We got the easy part, we just talk about it once, you have to deal with it on a regular basis, so.
So once we get this published for public hearing, then it goes to, assume it goes through, goes to city council, and the church sign would meet the criteria, then it could go up. So we still have a little bit of time.
Correct. To go about a month to schedule planning and zoning public hearing, then a city council public reading, then a second reading, then publication, then 20 days. It takes 90 days-ish, probably. So everything with government moves a little slower.
Yeah, if it was your business, it'd been done like that.
Can we give them a temporary sign that turns into a permanent sign? Permit?
They do have a temporary sign, but I don't know if it can just kind of just transition. It kind of depends on what it's made out of. And
You don't wanna keep a temporary sign, do you? Yeah. Let's just let it ride until we get the new.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good with that. So then, do we need to do the board? Because this was really a put off of the variance, right? So what do we do with the Board of Adjustment agenda? Do we need to go to that?
it's on the agenda, so it,
Okay.
yes, you can decide, you can yay, nay, defer.
Okay. So we will, call the meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Same roll call is here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for the Board of Adjustment?
Toad so moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda for Board of Adjustment. All in favor? All right. Moving on to the variance application for, that was tabled at February 19th meeting.
So, I think we're okay with working through this. I haven't seen a lot of objection. You've been sitting there nicely, so you haven't been, if we table this, can we table it out to past when we,
Now, what's the date it would be approved by city council? You have to read it twice, right?
Correct. Some of that would depend on publication, so I don't know. We'd have a lot of calendar examining to do.
Can we push it out to the end of April? That should cover it.
The public hearing with planning and zoning would be April 16th, most likely. The city council would not hear it then until April 21st. The second reading would be May 5th. Then, or May 4th. So the Monday. Then it would be sent to the newspaper Thursday or Friday that week, published on the 13th. It's either the day that it is in the paper or the last day. One of the two doesn't count. So you're probably looking at early June.
can we just table it to the first meeting in June and see where we're at then?
June 4th.
And if something does change, does the applicant have an opportunity to move that table forward?
You would set the timeline. They wouldn't be able to alter what you do.
Are
So
you okay
should
with
we
that?
send it earlier or do it earlier? Just, I don't know what would happen.
Or just 2 weeks. Just keep extending that case if something does come up, at least it's there. I mean,
Ending it. So the next time would be, when do we meet next? The 2nd of April? Right?
least go maybe even like the second meeting in April, go out, you know, a little bit.
And I don't think it's like you need to come every time, poor guy.
That's when we'll get you. You miss one.
The 16th,
Unless you just enjoy it and you wanna talk about all our
yeah.
topics.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to table it to the 16th of April.
Okay, do we have a
Hyde
second?
Brink, I'll second.
A motion second to table the variance application to the 16th of April. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We're going to
Thank you
adjourn.
for
Yeah, thank,
bearing with
yeah,
our slow process.
yeah. It's a really slow process, really frustrating. We need a motion to adjourn Board of Adjustment, please.
Hyde Brink, so move.
Toad second.
And a motion second to adjourn Board of Adjustment. All in favor? Opposed? All right, we're back at Planning and Zoning Commission. Do we have anything else to discuss under Planning and Zoning? I heard somebody say the word abut, and it gave me shivers, so I don't want to hear that word again. Okay, let's have a motion to adjourn Planning
Can I
and Zoning.
bring up just one quick topic?
Sure.
I know it's not on the agenda. I've noticed, as long as we're talking signage, excuse me, I think we have some signs that are starting to maybe get a little out of hand, coming in on Holly from Sioux Falls. We have some signs that are out in the highway right of way. Yes, but they're in the right of way, not on private property.
Good to know.
Just, you'll see them. They're in the road ditch.
They
If
gotta
we
be
could
on,
just have them move back onto the property.
they gotta be on
Thank
the
you.
private property, right?
Yeah. I just, especially with the winds, that's really scared me here this last week, so.
Okay, so we hope your temporary banner holds up until we get through this, but thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. Okay. Motion second. Did we get it?
Motion to adjourn planning and zoning.
Brooks. To adjourn.
Toad second.
A motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gee, no opposing. Okay, we're done.
We are adjourned at 8:01 p.m.